The entire globe is today the site of a momentous conflict. As each side attempts to prove to the world the superiority of its position, the conflict is fought with the words of diplomats, with gestures of friendship and help to uncommitted countries, even with cultural demonstrations. It is fought indeed on every level of man's experience, for the stakes are high. As one of the adversaries in the conflict, we see a challenge as great as any in our historic past. A challenge not, we hope, to be met and joined in battle, but to be faced and fought in the hearts and hopes of men. It is the challenge of ideas.
Welcome to Jurisfiction. My name is, then you introduce yourself, you kind of give a brief idea of what we're going to go through, and then go into topic one, right?
Yeah, did you want to do like do you or somebody have you or ever somebody ever had their dragon stolen? Well, we're going to talk about that. That's our first topic today, something like that.
Okay. I think I could do that. Okay. A little water. Start the moment. Okay. Ready?
I'm ready.
Good, whatever time of day you're listening to this, everyone. This is Jurisfiction. My name is Nima Ashtiani.
My name is Adam Kirshner. Basically, Jurisfiction is a conversation about whether real laws apply to fictional characters or circumstances.
And with that, the first thing we'd like to know is, do you suffer from missing dragon disorder? Are you currently looking in your driveway and realizing, my dragon is gone? What can I do?
Is that can I interrupt? Is that commonly where dragons are stored? They just sit out on driveways?
I would assume depending on the kind of weather, you might want to keep one indoors. As a lizard, I think they like warmer temperatures, so in my New Jerseyan climate, right now it might be okay, but in winter months you may want to keep them inside of like a hot stone.
Is it still called a driveway, or would it be a dragonway?
Well, uh, I guess it depends on what the dragon does to enter and exit. You drive in and out, right? So I guess it'd be a flight or walkway.
Do you drive dragons? Is that the right? Maybe that's the right term for it after all.
Well, you usually hear like fly on the dragon, but what if the dragon's walking? Like, how about Yoshi from Mario Brothers? That guy doesn't.
Hmm.
That guy doesn't fly. He's got boots.
He kind of trots, right?
So, would you be riding him? But ride is a fair term.
So a rideway?
A,
Is that the
a
it's
rideway. I'll allow it.
okay, so the dragon is sitting on the rideway.
The dragon is on the rideway, and then you exit your suburban home where all the people keep the dragons. You look in your rideway, and all of a sudden, what the heck? My dragon's gone. Well, Adam, what can I do?
Well, it depends. Do you know who took the dragon?
Well, if I did, I assume I'd be able to get it back. I'm going to go with no. Let's go with no on this one.
Well, are there police in your jurisdiction to whom you could report the missing dragon?
Yes, there are.
Well, let's start with that. Report the missing dragon to the local authorities, and let's assume that they conduct an investigation. One potential charge could be Grand Theft Auto, right? That's what we're discussing now. The first topic is whether theft of a dragon would be Grand Theft Auto.
Exactly. So would it depend on the kind of dragon it is, or what the mode of transportation of the area is? I mean, let's say we don't have cars anymore. Let's say everyone's got dragons. What does that
Oh,
count?
so in the future, we all fly on dragons. That's instead of flying saucers, it's going to be dragons now in the future.
I sure hope so.
Or are we going back to the future? Are we going back in time?
Well, how about if we're in the what do they do in DC Comics? DC Comics has the multiverse where every possibility of life exists at the same time. So let's say we're on Earth 5, where dragons are the normal thing, not cars. What are dragons in relation to what are dragons considered on that planet?
Well, let's first discuss what the elements of Grand Theft Auto are, and then we'll see if the dragon fits in the category of auto.
Okay.
So the first part of Grand Theft Auto is grand. The property is worth $1,000 or more. Sometimes it's $500, and sometimes the property is per se grand, regardless of the value. So it could be a cheap, old gremlin, and it might not actually be worth $1,000, but the theft of the gremlin still counts as grand for the purposes of Grand Theft Auto.
Now, just to be clear, by gremlin, you mean the vehicle gremlin and not the 1980s movie where if you fed the fuzzy creature after midnight, it turned into a beast.
Correct. Although the beast might also be per se grand. I've yet to see case law on that, but there might be some out there. Right. So some cheap old motor vehicle might not be worth $1,000 today, but would still be considered grand for the purposes of Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
So then the second part of grand theft is theft. It's unlawfully exercising control over the property owned by someone else with the intent to permanently deprive the owner of their property. That seems so. I guess some of the issues could be mental state, whether the actor actually had the mental state to permanently deprive the owner. If you borrow a car and return it, that might cut against the theft concept of Grand Theft Auto.
I believe that's just joyriding then.
Joyriding, sure. So it would be potentially another offense, but it wouldn't necessarily be Grand Theft Auto. But the third element of Grand Theft Auto refers to the automobile,
Mm-hmm.
or more often, motor vehicle, which implies that the mode of transportation is propelled by an engine. And I think we're going to have some difficulty applying Grand Theft Auto specifically to the theft of a dragon. Right, unless dragons have engines. Do dragons have engines?
Well, I mean, it's got a heart, it's got some lungs, it's got a tailpipe. See what I did there? And it exhausts. So, I mean, it has a biological engine. Does that count?
You know, I don't think so. I think the concept of automobile refers to a mechanical device used for transporting people. And the engine is part of those internal mechanisms. It's man-made, not naturally existing.
So, you're going with the dragon does not count as a vehicle under Grand Theft Auto.
So it could still be grand theft, right? Just because the property that's stolen is not an automobile doesn't mean that it's not still grand theft. It really just goes into the sentencing, right? If it doesn't fall into Grand Theft Auto, it would be Grand Theft something else, Grand Theft Dragon, and so there could be separate minimum and maximum sentences or fines for the grand theft of a dragon that would not necessarily be the same as the grand theft of an automobile.
You haven't watched Game of Thrones? I'll throw this out there anyway. Daenerys Targaryen is ready to ride her dragon. She turns around. What the hell? Someone stole it. She was off taking a nap. Someone came by, like most dragons do. If you just wave a little candy in front of them, they get into the back of the van.
Wait a minute. So there are vans in Game of Thrones, and somebody steals a dragon. They already have a van. It probably has air conditioning. It's probably more comfortable than riding on the back of a dragon.
I mean, look, it's true. The back of the dragon has those spines on it. It looks kind of sharp and uncomfortable, but it flies and breathes fire.
And how large is this van, or how small is this dragon that the dragon fits in the van?
Funny thing, probably much bigger than the van. Probably significantly bigger than the van. In fact,
Is this
the dragon could probably steal the van.
so there's a van just sitting there minding its own business. A dragon walks up, puts the van on its back, and flies away with the van on it. That's your fact pattern now?
Oh, I thought you were
That would
selling it.
be that would be Grand Theft Auto, all right? If the dragon steals the van,
So this conversation's
that,
taken a complete left turn, but in a way that we wanted to. Now we can have a Grand Theft Auto discussion. Can the dragon be charged with Grand Theft Auto?
all right. So if it were a legal person who exercises control over the property, in this case, a van owned by somebody other than the dragon, with the intent to permanently deprive the owner of that van. So we have at least two issues here. One, is a dragon a legal person that can be charged with anything? And second of all, can we determine the mental state, the mens rea of the dragon when it exercises control over the van?
Well, I'll give you my thinking is that a dragon is not a legal person. But for the sake of argument, let's say it is. What is the assessment of trying to find liability for it if it is in fact a legal person
What is the assessment for trying to find liability?
against a dragon? You were talking about you said before, you got to know what its mens rea is, the mental state of the yeah.
So, wait, are we assuming for the sake of conversation that the dragon is a legal person, or do we want to litigate that issue?
Well, I feel safe and comfortable saying that it is not a legal person. However, I'm willing to hear any other sides if there is one.
So can people in Game of Thrones communicate with dragons?
Um, well, sort of. It looks like Daenerys Targaryen, mother of dragons, can at least they kind of she cares for them, but she cares for them like she would a pet. A giant lizardy, scaly pet that breathes fire and eats children. Nonetheless, a pet.
If what's her name?
Daenerys? Yep.
Daenerys, like De Niro, but not De Niro.
Khaleesi? Khaleesi? She's also known as.
How many names? How many names does this person have?
Let's see. She's Khaleesi, Daenerys Stormborn of the House Targaryen, the Unburnt, Mother of Dragons, Freer of Chains, Breaker of Chains.
The Unburnt.
Yes,
How many people are burned?
everyone that isn't her.
Really?
So in the beginning of the whole show, in one of the episodes, she walks into one of these funeral pyres where they're burning a body, and she walks in with 3 eggs that are dragon eggs, and she comes out completely unharmed with 3 dragons where the eggs used to be.
Well, now it makes sense to call her the Unburned because she walked into a fire without getting burned. So the Unburnt. If the Unburnt is standing there and there's a dragon nearby, and she says, "Dragon, come here," first of all, is that a thing that the Unburnt would say?
That or Here Boy?
The Unburnt says, "Here, boy."
I mean, if I remember correctly, I think she's called the dragon before. So maybe not Here Boy, but come here, dragon, come here. Oh, she named one Drogon. Drogon, come here.
She named a dragon Drogon.
Yes.
Okay, so she says to Drogon, "Come here." And what did Drogon do in that circumstance?
Drogon walked over.
Does she ever say something to Drogon other than Drogon come here?
She says something in a different language, and I don't remember if it was to that specific dragon or the other, but she says something in like a different language, and they breathe fire on someone. So I assume she communicated to them to breathe fire.
So they can meaningfully communicate with. Are these humans? Is the Unburnt a human or an elf, or what is this?
It's human.
So she's a human.
She's
she
a human.
speaks in some human language.
Yep.
And the dragon can understand and interact meaningfully after she has communicated with it.
At least sometimes. Sometimes it looks like it's either not understanding or not paying attention. Because at one point it flew away, even though she didn't want it to, and then, it came back when she needed its help, but she didn't call for help. It just came back and saved her.
Does the Unburnt ever say to Drogon or another dragon not to do something? Like stop or don't spit fire?
I'm going to say no, not that I can recall, and I think one of the problems was one of the dragons was killing children or eating children and livestock, and she couldn't stop it, so she locked a couple of the dragons in a cave, and Drogon flew away. So I'm going to say it either did not want to listen to her, or she could not do anything about it.
So it doesn't sound like the dragons recognize anything that would prohibit them, right? It's not like they're availing themselves of, laws. They just do whatever they want.
I would say so. I would say that they act sometimes like wild animals.
But based on the interactions between the Unburnt and any of the dragons, Drogon or any of the other dragons, do they seem to respond to her out of free will?
Yes. Now, in the show, it seems like they recognize her as their caretaker. So they were hatched from eggs, and they latched to her like children to a mother. Hence her nickname, Mother of Dragons, one of her many nicknames.
So they respond to her as the caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
Is she the only person who owns dragons, controls dragons?
As of right now, yes.
Well, so it doesn't sound like there's a practice in this society of treating dragons as pets, right? It's not a universal thing.
No, it's very rare.
But she does seem to have control over them. They seem to acquiesce to her caretaking. So, although it seems like we can't really give legal personhood to the dragon, it doesn't recognize that there are laws that prohibit certain activities. It doesn't seem to comply with them if it even understands that there are prohibitions. It doesn't have a legal personhood. But it seems like they can be, to a certain extent, they can be controlled by the Unburnt. So if a dragon that is controlled by the Unburnt takes a van because the van is too small to fit the dragon inside of.
Which was ironically trying to take the dragon, yes.
Right. If somebody in a van pulls up and tries to fit the dragon inside of it, fails miserably because the dragon is so large that the van fits on the back of the dragon, and the dragon flies away with the van on the back of it, it seems like we can hold the Unburnt accountable for the Grand Theft Auto that the dragon committed. So unfortunately, although the theft of a dragon, should it ever be possible, could be Grand Theft but not Grand Theft Auto, the theft by a dragon of an auto would be Grand Theft Auto.
I'll allow it.
That's the first problem solved by Jurisfiction. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the break.
Monsters do have their place. In the zoo, in your nightmares, in the deep, in your favorite horror movies. But not in your living room, on your TV. Don't Don't let pay TV be the monster in your living room. Pay TV and cable TV companies are seeking the right to charge you for the very programs you now get free. If you want to stop pay TV and save free television, sign the petition in the lobby of this theater. Let your lawmakers know how you feel in the fight against pay TV and cable TV.
Welcome back, everyone, to Jurisfiction. Thanks for listening to us. You're still listening to us, and that in and of itself is a feat. Our third topic of the day is Cyclops. What's this guy doing? Does he have a right to bear that visor? Now, Adam, I know this is a topic you wanted to go over, so I'll let you take the reins on this one.
Well, sure. So states will often, if not universally, prohibit carrying firearms, right? And if you do carry it, you might have to, you will have to get a license for it in order to carry it. So the question is Cyclops concealing a firearm under his visor, and in that case, then he would need to get a license for it. So why don't you describe what is Cyclops' mutant ability?
Well, for anyone that hasn't seen X-Men before, you probably accidentally stumbled across this podcast, which is a whole different issue. But Cyclops has the ability, he can't help it, but laser beams shoot out of his eyes consistently, and he cannot stop it without wearing his visor, which then he can open or close, determining if he wants to shoot at something or someone or not.
So the default for Cyclops is shoot laser.
Yeah, he got a problem.
But he uses his visor to cover up that laser.
He puts the visor on to cover up the laser, yes.
Okay, so it covers up the laser. Would it be fair to characterize the visor as a means of concealing the laser?
Well, yes, because no one would know of his lasering if
it's not a see-through visor. You can't see that there's a laser underneath it.
I assume if you could look into his visor, you're probably dead at that point. So I'm gonna go with you can't see through it. He can see out, you can't see in.
So the visor definitely conceals something. The question is the thing that the visor conceals a firearm?
Exactly. And that's not just for Cyclops, I guess. We could also say the same thing about someone like Wolverine and his claws, right? I mean, they come out, they go in. He wants you to see them. He doesn't want you to see them.
Well, but his claws, they don't project. They're not projectile claws, right?
They stay.
They're knives.
Yes, I will agree with that. They're not projectile claws. They do stay where they are. I bring it up for the purpose that they're not always out either. He can deliberately pull them back into his arm, or they go back out. But you're right. Cyclops is the one with the projectile.
So it sounds, regardless of how we resolve the issue of whether Cyclops is concealing a firearm under his visor, it sounds like the X-Men are just an entire team of scofflaws. They just run around concealing weapons, and they don't feel like the laws apply to them.
They in fact do operate under their own rules. They go out and conduct missions, go to other countries. I mean, if Cyclops did not have his laser vision, his continuously shooting lasers out of his eyes, he would not be an asset to the team. So clearly he's being used for his dangerous propensity.
All right, so he's concealing something. Like all the X-Men, or many of the X-Men, he's concealing a weapon. Is the weapon a firearm? Are his laser eyes a firearm?
And I would have to say, because he does not have a choice in the matter, and he was born that way, and this is probably a discussion for another day, because this could open up a whole new can of worms, I would say not a firearm under the traditional sense. It's more like a disability for him, because it gives him, he cannot simply go out in public. He needs to have a prosthetic to help with his ailment, if you will.
But it's a projectile weapon, right? Like he does not need to physically touch another person, and whenever they touch what he emits, it harms them, right? It is a projectile weapon.
Yes, I will agree with that, except the fact that lasers are coming out of his eyes, I would make the argument that they must be some sort of bioorganic laser. Therefore, whenever they hit someone, one could say he's extended himself to physically touch someone
He touches people with his lasers
from his eyes.
from his eyes.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. When you look at someone,
Mm-hmm.
anyone, you see them with your eyes. Is that correct?
I do.
Right. When you see someone, are they physically wounded? They might be spiritually wounded when you look at them, but are they physically? They might be emotionally wounded, but are they physically wounded by your gaze? Is that the consequence of you looking at a person?
I will say no. They are not.
So unlike you, who does not physically harm people by looking at them, Cyclops physically harms people by looking at them. When you look at people, do you physically touch them? All right, I retract that. Whether you physically touch them when you look at them is a separate issue. Does the act of looking at someone in isolation touch whoever you are looking at?
Me personally, no. When I look at someone or something, I am not touching it with my eyes or somehow.
How do you distinguish Cyclops then from your circumstance?
Well,
Why is Cyclops touching them by looking at them, but you are not touching them by looking at them?
well, that one I can explain. Because Cyclops' eyes elongate with laser, but they have to be some sort of organic laser, right? Because it's coming from his body. It's like if I spit at someone. That's the best I got.
Yeah, but you're not touching them with your bodily fluid. You are projecting your bodily fluid on. This is getting dirty.
Maybe we should time. Is the show over? HR.
If you spit on someone, you are projecting your spit on them.
Yes.
And likewise, when Cyclops shoots lasers at someone with his eyeballs, he's not touching them with his eyeballs. He's using his mutant ability, which is a projectile weapon, to project this laser to harm people.
But now what happens? Now this is gonna go off the rails, but go with me on this. Have you ever seen the movie Big Daddy?
Is that the Adam Sandler movie?
Yes, that's the Adam Sandler movie where he adopts the kid.
Okay.
Do you remember when he teaches the kid to create a what's it called? He hawks a loogie that still sticks to his mouth and it goes like all the way down and comes back up into his mouth?
Sure don't, but let's just assume that happens in that movie.
And here goes the worst question ever asked. Let's say said loogie comes out of someone's mouth, still attached to their mouth, touches someone, then retracts into their mouth. Now what?
Well, you didn't touch them. You spat on them, and then you just retracted your saliva.
So then I will take what you've said to me today to mean that Cyclops' eye lasers are like eye saliva that he has spat upon others.
Cyclops' eye lasers are eye saliva.
Yes. Does that make sense? So it's not.
But that's not how it works. That's you disagree. You said that his power, if you want to call it a power, is he cannot control it. If he does not block his eyes,
right,
he will emit a harmful laser that will harm whatever the laser touches.
Yes.
So I guess after emitting the laser, he could engage the visor again and stop projecting it. But it nevertheless is a projection a harmful projection.
But
it is the functional equivalent of a firearm.
Yes, the overall effect may have the effect of a firearm in that it can cause permanent damage or death. But where it comes from also matters in that, like you said before, it's like eye saliva.
No, it's like you said before. It's like eye saliva.
I'm glad we agree that I said that.
I hope you said that.
I hope you said that. So my view of it is, it's eye saliva. It's just painful eye saliva. Destructive, life-ending eye saliva.
Is the laser emitted from Cyclops harmful?
Yes.
Is the laser emitted from Cyclops a weapon?
It can be used as a weapon.
Does Cyclops use the laser from his eyeballs to harm anyone?
Yes, he does.
How would you define the term weapon?
An object or a thing, not of someone's person, used by said person to inflict damage or protection.
Say you're fighting somebody and the other person has a sword.
Mm-hmm.
Say they cut off one of your arms.
Mm-hmm.
You pick up with your arm that has not been cut off. You pick up the arm that has been cut off.
I see where this is going without eye saliva.
And using the arm that has not been cut off,
Mm-hmm.
you swing the arm that has been cut off that you picked up,
Mm-hmm.
and you strike the person who cut off the arm that you're using to strike them with,
Mm-hmm.
and it injures them, and they drop their sword and run away.
Okay.
Is the severed limb that you used a weapon?
Yes.
But under your definition,
Under my definition, that still follows.
Because it's been removed from your body, your body part has been removed
Because
from
it's no
your body.
longer of your body. It was of your body. It has been casted away from your body.
Oh,
so
okay, fine. So
if someone were to remove Cyclops' eyeballs and use them, they would be weapons.
Yeah, but it's not his eyeball. His eyeballs don't touch. His eyeballs don't touch anybody. He emits a laser, like a firearm, and the laser is what touches them. His eyeballs stay. Does he have eyeballs? Does Cyclops have eyeballs?
I mean,
theoretically, Cyclops would have only one eyeball, but like that's a separate issue. Does Cyclops still have at least one eyeball?
I believe that's going to be a new topic where X-Men or other mutants are actually false advertising with their names. But I see that as a good topic. In my coming up with that quick quip, I actually forgot your question.
Oh, does Cyclops still have at least one eyeball?
Yes, he has two eyeballs.
He has two eyeballs.
He has two eyeballs.
Does Cyclops ever take off his visor and touch another person
Inappropriate
with his eyeball?
No, that's weird. Why would anyone do that?
Exactly. Why would anybody touch someone else with their eyeball?
I mean, unless said eyeball was some sort of laser emitting eyeball, then it makes perfect sense.
Well, but it's not like Roger Rabbit, right, where the eyeballs pop out of the sockets, right? The eyeballs remain inside of Cyclops' sockets.
So wait, how about this? Let's take Roger Rabbit. You're right. Roger Rabbit, when he gets surprised or excited or something, his eyes popped out of his head. Let's say he deliberately surprised himself to make his eyes come out of his head and strike someone. Tell me the difference between that and Cyclops.
Well, for one thing, it's the mechanism, right?
It's an attack from his eyeballs.
So Roger Rabbit is surprised by someone, and he involuntarily projects his eyeball because that's his default response to being surprised. I will
say that that's a different scenario. If someone uses Roger Rabbit, so if you are holding Roger Rabbit in your hand and you go up to someone and you smack him in the back of the head and his eyes pop out and strike someone, you've used Roger Rabbit as a weapon. But
all of him.
You've used all of them as a weapon. But I mean, the specific strike from his eyeball popping out from the surprise, you've utilized that as a weapon. But if Roger Rabbit somehow surprises himself and he's standing next to someone that he doesn't like, and he deliberately stands there so that when he's surprised, his eyeballs will knock them out, I think he's become a little Cyclopsy.
I mean, how much of that? You're building a paradox, right? You cannot intentionally surprise yourself, right? If you know that you're right, all I was just minding my business next to the victim when all of a sudden the victim surprised me and I shot my eyeballs at the victim and the victim died. Like that's not no you reach the appropriate mens rea for that crime. You knowingly placed yourself next to the victim, and apparently you can control your eyeballs, right? Because you would not be surprised by what happened. You caused that sequence of events to occur.
So what's the difference between that and punching someone?
I mean, the part of the body that you use.
But from a legal standpoint, there's no difference. Whether you hit someone with your fist or your foot or your eyeball.
Which goes back to Cyclops, I suppose.
So
there's no legal difference whether he whether he walks up to someone and touches them with his eyeball, if the eyeball would cause harm, or if he's standing 10 feet away and opens up the visor or whatever and emits a harmful laser. The laser strikes the victim and the victim is harmed. It's a firearm. It's the functional equivalent, at least, of a firearm. And he's concealing it under his visor, and therefore Cyclops is concealing a firearm under his visor.
I say it's a laser loogie from his eyes, akin to spitting from his eyeballs.
So it's not a laser at all. It's just his eye lubricant.
Oh, what's that lizard that can spit blood from its eyes? The Gila monster, I think.
So Cyclops is a Gila monster.
There you go. He's in fact. Oh, Cyclops is a lizard. Therefore, Cyclops, if he were stolen, would be Grand Theft Dragon.
That's all the time that we have for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in to Jurisfiction. Please listen to our next episode. Don't judge us too hard.